Once upon a time, during the presidency of Franklin D. Roosevelt, the president found himself in quite the predicament. It was a hot summer day in Washington, D.C., and the sun was relentless. President Roosevelt was working diligently in the Oval Office, dealing with the usual barrage of political matters. However, as the clock struck noon, he felt a pang of hunger that could not be ignored. The president's stomach growled, reminding him that it was time for lunch. He rang the intercom and said, "Eleanor, I could really use a good lunch right now. Let's try something different today." Eleanor, his wife, took note of the president's request and decided to surprise him. She knew of a little hidden gem, a hole-in-the-wall diner nearby, known for its delicious hot dogs. Eager to treat her husband, she ordered a Secret Service agent to accompany her, and off they went on a secret culinary adventure. The diner was a modest place, frequented by locals, and they were shocked to see the First Lady walk in, accompanied by a stern-looking agent. "My goodness! Eleanor Roosevelt in our diner," the owner exclaimed, his excitement palpable. Eleanor smiled and whispered, "Shoo! We're trying to keep a low profile. My husband just wanted a quick bite, away from the spotlight." The owner nodded enthusiastically and promptly prepared their hot dogs. Little did they know that someone had recognized Eleanor Roosevelt, and word spread like wildfire. The entire diner was abuzz with excitement. Back at the Oval Office, President Roosevelt was eagerly awaiting his wife's return. He could hardly focus on the paperwork at hand, his mind wandering to the delectable hot dogs he hoped to enjoy. Just then, Eleanor and the agent returned, carrying a bag filled with mouth-watering hot dogs. As they entered, the agent tried to keep a straight face, but he couldn't help but chuckle at the irony of the situation. "Mr. President, I present to you the most top-secret hot dogs in all of Washington," Eleanor said with a grin. Roosevelt laughed heartily, thoroughly amused by the whole affair. They spread out the hot dogs on the president's desk, and without further ado, the trio began devouring the delightful treats. Little did they know, the scent of the hot dogs had begun to waft through the corridors of power. Suddenly, the door swung open, and the Secretary of State barged in, gasping for breath. "Mr. President, I have urgent news," he exclaimed. Roosevelt, with a mouthful of hot dog, tried to maintain his presidential composure. "What is it, Secretary?" "I just received the call from the press. They've got wind of your secret lunch mission with the First Lady, and they're on their way here," the secretary said, his eyes wide with panic. Eleanor and the agent exchanged a worried look, but Roosevelt remained remarkably calm. "Well then, we better come up with a plan," he said, his mind racing with ideas. Roosevelt quickly glanced around the room and spotted an old wheelchair tucked away in the corner. He winked at the agent and said, "I've got an idea. Help me into that wheelchair and cover me with a blanket." The agent nodded, catching on to Roosevelt's plan. They swiftly positioned the president in the wheelchair, covering him with a blanket so that only his legs were visible. Just in the nick of time, the press arrived, cameras flashing as they burst into the Oval Office. "What's going on here?" "We heard there was a secret lunch mission," one journalist exclaimed. The agent cleared his throat and put on a stern face. "Nothing to see here, folks. Just a routine medical examination," he declared. Roosevelt, hidden under the blanket, let out a series of fake coughs, playing his part brilliantly. Yes, medical examination. Just a bit under the weather, he mumbled from beneath the blanket. The journalists, taken aback, didn't know what to make of the bizarre scene before them. After a few awkward moments, they finally left, still unsure of what had just transpired. As soon as they were gone, Roosevelt burst into laughter, and Eleanor joined in. The agent couldn't help but laugh as well, realizing the ingenious plan that had just unfolded. Amid the laughter, Roosevelt looked at Eleanor and said, "Well, my dear, I suppose the moral of this escapade is that sometimes, you need to get a little creative to escape the spotlight and enjoy the simple pleasures of life." And so, the President, the First Lady, and the Secret Service agent shared a hearty laugh and finished their hot dogs, knowing that this unconventional escape would be a cherished memory for years to come. They learned that even in the most serious of situations, a little humor and ingenuity can make life's challenges much more manageable. As they say, laughter is truly the best medicine, even for the leader of the free world.
Thank you for listening. For more stories like this, please consider subscribing.